PACs have clearly made a decision to do is we're asking nations to step up and be counted. They're going to have to decide. Are they going to stand with the United States and believe in freedom and democracy and civilization, or are they going to stand with the terrorists and the barbarians, if you will? And it's a fairly clear-cut choice, and I'm delighted to see that Pakistan has, in fact, stepped up to the task.
This is going to change the way we do business. It's going to change the way we go about our daily life here in the United States. It's going to require a greater emphasis on homeland defense, so we can defend ourselves against those who, notwithstanding our best efforts overseas, are still trying to get in to the country to hurt us. And so we should see this as a long-term campaign and do apply decisive force to it. And that force isn't just military force. It's all the elements of national power that are at our disposal.
Well, you just heard the Vice President there talking about Pakistan stepping up to the task here. Pakistan is urging Afghanistan's Taliban rulers to hand over Osama bin Laden. A delegation of senior Pakistani officials are meeting with Taliban officials in Afghanistan on Monday. And we spoke live with Pakistan's foreign minister just a short time ago. Let's listen.
The Pakistani delegation at a high level will be conveying to the Taliban government of Afghanistan the imperative of compliance with Security Council resolutions, both those that have been adopted in the past and the one that was adopted on the 12th of September. That is our own policy, and we hope that the government of Afghanistan will act with responsibility in the terribly grave situation raised by these horrendous terrorist attacks in New York and Washington.
And that Pakistani delegation would seem to have its work cut out for it in Kabul, because so far Afghanistan's Taliban have steadfastly refused to surrender bin Laden, some Pakistani officials even saying they don't expect it to happen. Michael?
Okay. Well, Major Garrett joining us now from Washington, where a long weekend is coming to a close. New tasks facing the Bush administration when Monday dawns. Major, I think you heard a lot of that interview from Pakistan. How do you think it's likely to be received there?
Well, of course, so much that was said in that interview has probably already been expressed to senior Bush administration officials in private. And the administration went out of its way, as it fanned out on the Sunday talk shows, to praise Pakistan for, as the vice president said, stepping up to the plate. You know, there's public diplomacy and there's private diplomacy, and the Pakistanis have been carrying both the private and the public on channels that can be watched across the world through CNN. Pakistani government made it clear on Sunday that among the things it is looking for the United States, if it in fact joins this broadening coalition as robustly as it has promised to, is help on removing economic sanctions imposed after Pakistan tested a nuclear device in 1998, aid for the country generally, and U.S. intervention, or at least increased U.S. intervention, in Pakistan's ongoing dispute with India over Kashmir. Privately, the Bush administration is saying, as far as the Kashmir dispute is concerned, they're not really eager to jump into that. But as to the question of economic sanctions and a broader aid package for Pakistan, privately they're not in any way suggesting that may in fact not occur. But overall, the Bush administration is only praising publicly Pakistan for getting involved, offering its good offices, sending this delegation to Afghanistan. There will be a high-level State Department delegation traveling to Pakistan in the very near future, Secretary of State Powell says, to continue working with the Pakistani government, which right now is considered among the chief new allies in this broadening coalition. As the President said a few moments ago, there are many nations that only a year or two ago would have been inconceivable allies in any sort of global effort against terrorism, but now, at least in the case of Pakistan, some are coming into the fold.
Indeed, Major. Pakistan, of course, has a lot to lose here. They have a lot at stake domestically and with other Islamic nations that support Pakistan in many ways. You mentioned what the White House might be prepared to do for them. In the broader sense, is the White House prepared to deal on a large scale with any number of countries they might be asking for help? Pakistan's just one. The Russians aren't happy with missile defence, but the US is going to need their help. Could this be months of wheeling and dealing in a way?
Months, probably not months. I think the wheeling and dealing, as you describe it, and of course the diplomat might just say that's regular negotiations, will be happening on an hour-by-hour basis. You mentioned Russia. Clearly, Russia geographically crucial. It's crucial because it holds a veto vote on the UN Security Council, through which some type of resolution might in fact be sought by the Bush administration, giving it global sanction to carry out a military effort against Afghanistan or others. Russia clearly has issues of its own concern. Terrorism has been a huge problem in Moscow, most of it from Chechen rebels. Chechen rebels have been at times linked with Osama bin Laden, so Russia has its own agenda to pursue here, one that is now diplomatically and security-wise simpatico with the United States, so you might find an allegiance there born of the shared problem with terrorism, and that would sort of put aside other long-running disputes between the two countries.
It's going to be interesting the days ahead. Major Garrett, thanks very much. Colleen.
Michael, after the longest halt since World War I, traders will be returning later today to the New York Stock Exchange. In fact, just a short time from now, trading is scheduled to begin in just about 7 hours from now. And it is an opening session that I think it's fair to say will be watched around the world. The traders, though, will not be alone. Lots of people returning to their jobs in Lower Manhattan on Monday. Bruce Francis has some of their stories.
Nick Liberatos usually serves up hundreds of breakfasts at this coffee shop just 3 blocks away from the NYSE. But as the traders he caters to get back to work, he and his employees will be cleaning up $20,000 worth of rotting food.
I don't know when I can have supplies delivered to the store, like milk, bread, produce. Nobody can come in, so we don't know what to do, and we don't know when we could open.
Although much of the financial district is open to a surprising amount of foot traffic, security is tight in the immediate vicinity of the exchange.
That's my 2-wall building pass, but here's my driver's license.
The New York Stock Exchange continued its second day of testing. Several firms, including the nation's largest broker, Merrill Lynch, have had to relocate to buildings outside of the financial district. The NYSE says that computer and communications inside the exchange are working fine, as are key links between members. The neighborhood's workers are hanging tough.
I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared, but I'm certain that we'll get through.
America is strong and we will do the best. I'm 100% for that.
I'm confident. I'm not afraid.
Wall Street's reopening will also be a major test for the city's transportation systems. Subways will be open, but key lines will be moving much more slowly.
The Holland Tunnel and major Hudson River crossing is still closed, and so are major commuter trains from New Jersey, which used to stop at the World Trade Center. Bruce Francis, CNN Financial News, New York.
Well, European and Asian markets have been struggling along this past week without really any guidance from the New York markets because, of course, they have been closed. Richard Quest joins us now from London with more on what is expected. Richard, this is going to be watched so closely. What are people going to be looking for?
They're going to be looking for direction, Colleen. Of that there is no doubt. You're right that Europe's markets will begin opening at the top of the hour, and we'll see then if they can begin to recover from the very large losses that they saw on Friday, when the main indices in London, Paris and Frankfurt all fell by between 3 and 6%. Investors are especially curious to see what will happen when New York opens. The exchange's chairman says it's important to get it running to send a message.
We are ready to go 9:30 tomorrow morning, and the best way of communicating to these criminals that they've been unsuccessful is for us to ring that bell and be back in business, and we intend to do that.
Now, let's check in what happened to the Asian market. Once again, it's a simple case of, without any New York trading, which way was the market supposed to move? So looking at the numbers, there have been sharp losses overnight in all the major Asian markets. Tokyo's benchmark index, the Nikkei, down about 5% on the session. In Hong Kong, the Hang Seng is down 3%. In Singapore, the Straits Times was off 5.1%. They had all been worried about what they now believe is the weakness in large parts of corporate America. The problem is that the effects of what happened on Tuesday will be felt wide and far. For instance, we already know that the airline industry, many airlines are saying that they're in deep financial problems. Others claim that there could be bankruptcies. There will be profit warnings from a variety of other corporations. Insurance companies say they are going to have serious losses. And, of course, there will be severe slowdowns as a result of 4,000 planes per day, many of whom have not been flying. The losses to the airline industry, around $250 million a day. As business prepares to resume at the New York markets, part of downtown Manhattan has reopened for the first time since Tuesday's attack. As Chris Huntington reports, New York's financial district seems determined to get back to business as usual.
As utility workers laid the groundwork for restoring power, the New York Stock Exchange unfurled its message to the world. Wall Street will be back in business Monday morning. The debris of terror still covers the financial district, but there is unanimous determination to shake it off.
Monday we're going to try to open and we're going to clean it.
Hopefully back to normal if we can get deliveries, coffee in the morning, donuts, Danish.
We're just trying to clean up first, put everything together, trying to wake up from this nightmare, and that I think we'll get back even better than what we used to be.
The Federal Reserve Bank of New York set a defiant and patriotic tone on Saturday, blaring marching music from a corner of its stone fortress. Businesses in the financial district are now in a war zone. There are security checkpoints throughout the area.
Just let me see that you have credentials for 45 John.
And many streets remain off limits.
The area's now frozen.
Okay. You know how long that's going to be?
Buildings are all unsafe. The buildings on John Street are unsafe.
As of late today, a huge area of the financial district is so damaged that hundreds of businesses will be shut out of their offices indefinitely, including American Express, Merrill Lynch, and Lehman Brothers in the World Financial Center. The partners of Aetna Judicial Services were lucky. They managed to retrieve their files just before authorities put their building off limits.
So business is basically in 5-6 bags that thanks to my partner we were able to grab out of the office. We're up and running better than probably most businesses today.
The priority tonight on Wall Street is to restore power and communications. More than 9,300 customers are still without electricity in the area, and the regional phone company Verizon reports that it is still working on the connection between the New York Stock Exchange and its member firms. Chris Huntington, CNN Financial News, New York.
So, stock exchanges in New York reopen. Europe and the rest of the world get some financial direction. I'm joined by Bill Hahn, the International Managing Director of ACI, the Financial Markets Association. We have to start with, obviously, the question, New York opens, what happens?
Well, I think it's going to be more of a symbolic opening than an actual opening today. I think volumes are likely to be less than some analysts are forecasting. This isn't the climate, I think, for mature, sensible investors to rush into investment decisions. There are just too many uncertainties, and I think there's going to be a wait-and-see attitude on behalf of many of the fund managers.
You pay your money, you take your choice in terms of the extent of the downside, anything from 250 to 450 points. Perhaps what we see at the open is not as important, other than in confidence terms, than what we see as a trend moving forward.
I think that's correct. I mean, my own personal view is that we're likely to see between 300 to 400 point fall at the opening, and it'll probably close a lot better than that. I think you've got to keep in mind that a lot of companies are still in the process of moving to disaster recovery sites, so they're not going to have the full staff in place to be able to cope with large volumes today. Large numbers of US corporations have said they're going to buy back shares. Why are they doing it? Is this sending a message? Is it a confidence-building exercise? Well, I guess to a certain extent it is. A lot of companies did have share purchase plans that they could activate. If prices fall dramatically, I guess this is a good opportunity for them to buy back shares at a good level. All right. Warren Buffett, the sage of Omaha, says he won't be selling, and if prices look particularly cheap, he'll be a buyer. I mean, I think before the disastrous effects of last week, a lot of investors, professional investors, were feeling that the market had reached an attractive level. I mean, they're buying not for what's going to happen for the next 2 to 3 weeks, but for the longer term. With that in mind, all right, you're a small investor with a portfolio. The last thing perhaps you want to do into this market is sell into it. I would agree. I think there are probably too many uncertainties at the moment. Nobody knows how this situation is going to pan out over the coming weeks. And I think probably today is not a good day to make longer-term investment decisions. OK, finally, confidence and mood. You've got your finger on the financial pulse. What's the confidence and mood? Well, obviously, we represent 19,000 plus individual members of our association around the world in over 80 countries. We're obviously very concerned about them. The mood is extremely cautious.
Bill, many thanks indeed. We wish you luck in the day ahead. Now back to